Welcome to LaunchCode with Mike and Paul, two industry veterans who will take you on their exciting adventure building their software company from the ground up. Get ready for cutting-edge tech insights, candid stories, and a whole lot of fun along the way. Welcome to their amazing adventure. Welcome to LaunchCode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to LaunchCode with Mike and Paul. I'm Paul Schneider. This is my good friend and business partner, Mike Dillon. Mike, how are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for putting this together.
Absolutely.
And, today we've got a very special friend, longtime friend and business partner, John Gilligan, who is a thought leader in higher education and public sector, and has been a strategist for PeopleSoft for many years, and then Oracle. So, a career of over 25 years in the application side, but even prior to that, doing some work for the Department of Ed and universities as well. So, John, I don't want to preempt your intro for yourself, but why don't you tell us a bit more about your background?
Well, thanks, Paul and Mike. I'm super excited to be here and honored to be a guest on your podcast. As they mentioned, my name is John Gilligan, and I currently work for Oracle, although I am not representing Oracle just for legalese reasons. But I'm a senior business architect, and so I span cloud. My background, I really born and raised as Montana and an alum of the University of Montana, go Grizz, and have worked, as Mike mentioned, with the Department of Education on educational policies, from the central processing system to process financial aid to being one of the architects for the direct lending program. And then also have worked on the implementation side with cyber, and that's how I met Mike and Paul. And then also with application providers such as DataTel, and implemented SunGuard Banner at that time, and then also PeopleSoft SAP. And now I cover public sector, federal healthcare, and higher education. So
quite a career.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm only
off to a good start, John.
Exactly. I'm only 38, give or take. So I'm super excited to be here. So thanks again.
Fantastic.
That's awesome. We're really happy to have you. Hey, Mike, so it was interesting. Last time was the first episode ever of LaunchCode. We were all excited and trying to get the first one squared away. And I got a call from my buddy, Tim Taylor. He's like, hey, you never really kind of spoke about what the company did. You said you were starting a company, but you never really said, well, what does the company actually do? So maybe you can share with our listeners, before we jump into all the cool stuff we're going to talk with John about, maybe you can just share a little bit with the listeners what we're doing here at Elasticforce.
Well, we're obviously not professional podcasters, but otherwise we're going broke quick. But
yes, we are.
First and foremost, we're a software development company. We're focusing in on AI development. We've got a number of solutions that we're developing and porting from commercial world to higher education, which is a special niche for us. We're also working on Oracle Cloud extensions that, things that may not be on the roadmap for Oracle that we can help Oracle in the market. We've got a variety of other services, from managed services for PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, and Oracle Cloud apps. So that's a really wonderful offering, and we know a lot of institutions in particular are strained to find the right kind of resources to support their tech environment. So that's something we're proud of. And then we have a unique offering around automated application modernization. And we can automate the code from a legacy app into a cloud product in a matter of hours. So, and I'm not joking, a matter of hours, not days, not weeks. The client lift in that effort is really just helping us spec out the design for the new screens, and then obviously testing. But we're really excited about that offering and to helping not only from modernizing these legacy apps, which pose in many cases a real risk, whether it's a cyber risk or just a risk that it's the resources that supported those or developed those apps are no longer around. So anyway, unique offering there.
Mike and Paul, one of the other things that I think is really interesting that the service that you're offering, as you mentioned, extensions, is tying to the cloud world for higher education around state-specific reporting that vendors may not necessarily be presenting as part of their standard delivered product. And I think that without saying too much, for you, but in the state of California, for example, where I know one of the is a really exciting engagement as well for Elastiforce.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the critical things, you can have a great application, but making sure that you're reporting appropriately to state agencies is critical, and we're helping Oracle in that arena. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that, John.
Yep. Fantastic. All right. So that's a little housekeeping out of the way. So we're going to talk about some great things today. We're going to talk about the future of higher ed as John sees it. We got some great insights in regards to that, some cool things that are coming out from Oracle. And we're going to round this off with some really unique insights into the Yellowstone franchise and ranch, because John's got some really unique insights into that. But before we jump into that, you guys were telling me about some story where Mike almost killed John or something like this, because you guys have known me you two have known each other longer than I have. So maybe you can fill me in on what this story is.
Oh, Mike, I'm going to let you tell it, and then I'm going to share the actual facts.
Well, I'll just start off, but you should be thanking me. Okay.
Right. Right.
You should really, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right.
Well, John and I led an effort to launch some product offerings in the UK, Oracle / PeopleSoft, and we were stuck in a backup of cars that we were going a block every 45 minutes. I mean, it was taking forever, and we were within, say, half a mile or so of the train station. Eventually, we had to either abandon the car to catch our train, and it was the last train going back to London, or we were going to spend the night. So of course we abandoned. We grabbed our luggage. Everybody had rollers, and we ran. It was like it was like 440 dash, man. We booked, and John, you fortunately you unfortunately were the last man, and I don't know why. Paul Majoros was another guy. We boarded the train and we looked out the window to make sure you made it. I mean, honestly, we were holding it up for you.
Yeah, as you had ordered drinks and beverages already.
Well, we did. By the time you caught up, we had glasses of wine in our hand.
Right. And a few things that he sort of left out. One is, at that point, I was almost 300 pounds. And so now I'm I just went to the doctor, so I'm about 209 now. So, so I was significantly larger. And second, when he talks about a roller bag, him and Paul had come from London, and their roller bag was one that you could easily fit into an overhead. Mine was a full-size garment bag roller, because I was living in the UK at that point, and I was moving between Manchester, where we were, I believe we were there, and then trying to catch this train. And this train, as you mentioned, was the last train, but it was also to get them back to be able to make a flight back to the United States. And so all I remember on the M5, which where we were stopped, is there was a really serious accident that resulted in fatalities, and we could see it. And it wasn't really a conversation about options because there was only one, and it was like, get out. And because I was close to the door, it was, no, really, we're going to get out. And the sprint part's true, because they were sprinting. Mine was more of a side to side thigh burning waddle that was enjoyable. That by the time I got to the train, I was, because I was large, I was sweating. I was breathing heavy. I mean, it was beyond ridiculous. It almost took that entire trip back to London to regain some resemblance of self. But it was a great catalyst. We thought, okay, that doesn't really, I don't really need to be that heavy. So I did go on a venture that took almost a year. So.
Well, let me tell you, when we got on the train, the humidity was about 20%. When John got in, it was skyrocketed to 80.
Wow, that's love.
Yeah,
That's
thanks for that.
Yeah, that's love. And by the way, that didn't happen just once. It did happen twice. There was another situation with our former boss, Russ Wheeler. So yeah.
A
That's
couple
true.
cars
That
sitting
was
out there
that was
in Europe
Cambridge.
somewhere.
Yes, a similar.
That was
similar.
if I remember that one, we were in Cambridge,
That's right.
and Russ was determined to make a flight out the next morning, and there was a snowstorm that started. John was in the middle of his presentation, and Russ said, "You know what? I think we have to leave." So we catch this. Now there was payback. There was payback because it should have been from Cambridge to London, and it turned out we left. We must have left at like 2:30. We didn't get to London till 2 a.m. It was literally the worst drive ever. It was inching in the snow, and then we get almost to London. You can see the lights of London, and the car we're in suddenly hits the top of a hill, and it's all iced down, and we slide in. So we're almost make it after hours and hours, right? 10 hours, slide into another car. We have an accident. So see, we saved you from that, John.
Again,
that was actually a gift.
Well, thank you for both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Third time's a charm.
Hopefully I'm a part of this next one, except I'll probably be the one running at the end. So that's great. That's awesome. All right. Well, why don't we jump into it a little bit? So one of the things that we wanted to talk about, Mike and John and I have lots of conversations just in regards to higher ed, because that really is where we're all focused, where we've been focused in the past and where we're going to be focusing in the future. So, John, from your perspective, I know you have some thoughts in regards to this. What do you think is the future of higher education out there, as all the different things that are changing in the world? How is that going to affect higher ed?
Yeah, so, I want to preface, this is my own opinion. Again, this will be the last time I'll say this, but I'm not speaking on behalf of Oracle. I'll share anything that's in public domain, but this is really my own opinion and thoughts within the industry. We are really, probably for the first time, especially after COVID, really having to rethink higher education. And what I mean by that is with regards in sort of three different facets. One is how students and parents are viewing higher education within long-term professional, career, and educational goals. Is the degree that they are going to get worth the squeeze and the value long-term, having a high school diploma versus a four-year degree versus a trade school certificate in education is so close now that you really do have to explain the value. So from a student and parent and family is obviously the affordability and cost of education, going in-state and out-of-state and paying different tuition based on that, and how they access education, whether they will take classes online, in place with bricks and mortars, which many in the industry called behinds in the seats, and also will they have a hybrid, and how they can charge, how they can make that accessible, and other types of educational funds with that. And it's really driving on personalizations and preferences. So, it takes about 120 credits right now, or units, to receive an undergraduate degree. And many are saying, why do I need that many? Why should I not really be around 90? I spend an entire first year, in many cases, if needed, taking remediation in maths and sciences and English. And I may also take a lot of first year courses that really they're just considered general elective, or they don't pertain to core. And do I really need to spend that amount of money? I think the second from the US Department of Education is, if you really wanted to radically change how states and institutions throughout the United States, regardless of 2-year, 4-year, private, public, not-for-profit, et cetera, but you're receiving some type of federal funding, is to send every institution in the United States into a reimbursement model. And what I mean by that is a reimbursement model is used typically by the Department of Education for institutions who are struggling meeting their compliance requirements, or they've had some type of finding of breaking a compliance rule. And so they don't receive money until after the school starts. And they do their first reporting to the government. And so it's usually at census date. And after they started, and then they're reimbursed the money based on that information. The majority institutions in the United States receive their money in advance. And it's literally millions and millions of dollars. And in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars. And so institutions use those funds instead of their own state funds, institutional funds, and even grant research endowment funds to pay faculty, staff, build buildings, generate pipeline for students and prospects and applicants. And so if you really want to see how the world changes, that would be the biggest change the department could make. And then lastly, I think that the other component within education is trying to derive which program or programs, areas of studies, fields of study, make the most sense based on what we know today versus what we know in 4 years or 3 years, 5 years. Sometimes it's taking 5 or 6 years to get out and get a four-year degree, which is a really big deal. And I think that that's probably, we're both, you, Paul, and Mike, were talking earlier about artificial intelligence and machine learning and where we'll see some of the biggest changes in education.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you wonder just in regards to like streamlining the entire process, like with AI, there's certain jobs that are going to go away. So does that mean that there are certain classes that probably can go away? Because I'm not going to need that. I understand that maybe I don't need all that math. I understand I need problem solving, but I might not need all those math courses, things like that. So it'll be interesting just to see how higher ed kind of adapts to the changes from a technology perspective and how that gets down to the actual academics that the kids take.
Well, and absolutely. And helping students who are currently in those program tracks, fields of studies, some people used to call them majors and minors, today. And when they get out, they may be 2 years in and they're getting out in 2 years. And as you mentioned, their career outlooks and prospects could be drastically different. And they've spent thousands of dollars to receive an undergraduate degree. I think that one of the things that we will need to be doing better with artificial intelligence, and we've talked about this as well, it's one of the services that you're looking at under your AI, is that when there's an individual or in a family looking at attending an institution, and there's so much information out there today that can help drive them. First, if they don't know at 16, 17 years of age what they want to study for the rest of their life, is using that artificial intelligence to prompt them and survey them quickly on things that they really like to do, not just from an education, but what do you do in your everyday life? I play golf. I like a beach. I like to work with people. I don't really like to work with people because I'm shy. And it can take an entire world that you function in and say, now look at the programs of institutions and tell me what is the best fit of the program and field of study, so that when you get out, you'll really like your job, which we all know if you really like your job, it makes life a lot easier. But then tying
it in your life.
Right, absolutely. And then when you look at that, and you tie that to, now look at the Bureau of Labor and their statistics for what the next projections are in they look several years out to say, okay, I have 3 choices to go into. I don't really know which one. Now give me the information and the projections based on worldwide economy and also the United States and by region. So if you want to stay in the South, or you want to say, I want to stay in Montana, which has a large issue of people moving away, that it'll say, here are your options, here are your future prospects in that area and region, in your field of study, and how much we think you can make upon the 4-year, 5-year, 6-year graduation. And so giving them an entire outlook, but then even taking it one step further. I have my interest, It tells me where I'm going to be in 4 years, or where I can be 4 to 6 years, and how much I can make. But you can also then tie that back to the institution services of career services and career placement, which there also is a funding model outcome that they get more money for, and say which from that institution, which companies do they bring to campus, and they have relationships work that I may want to be able to work with, and that they can help me get a placement. And that is one of the biggest advantages. Many alum schools, USC and others, absolutely tout their alumni networks in helping alum. The University of Montana does that as well, and others, to say, where can I go? How can the institution help me? And then that closes the cycle, which many processes do not today in higher education, unfortunately.
I think it's fascinating when you look at how higher ed has evolved just in the last, say, 120 years, right? Because at the turn of the last century, right, maybe 2 to 5% of the population actually went to college. Very elite, right? It's an exclusive club. And then, as time passed, and particularly when the GI Bill passed, right? So you had all these servicemen coming back that the economy couldn't absorb. The government got out pretty much ahead of it, and said, no, let's retrain, let's make higher education affordable. They passed the GI Bill. Servicemen are going to college. And then, you advance from the late 40s and into the 50s and 60s, and then you've got a much more participation in higher ed. Then you've got an expectation from companies that, hey, you need that degree to actually succeed, and we're not going to look at people in many cases unless they have a degree, right? That transformation happened. So then you get this mass participation in higher education, and there's some part of it that I appreciate, which is, it's a step up. It still is. It's bootstrap people you can make something happen with an education that you couldn't before. But on the flip side of it, just exactly what's happening right now, and I'll call it, might be a kind of a negative term, but consumerism, right? And now it's the student that's saying, what am I getting out of this education? I may not appreciate, and I appreciate, general ed and having a world perspective and knowing history and culture. But, when you're going into massive amounts of debt, it is, the accountability is there now, I think, for, hey, what am I going to get for this? And is it right? And, I'm not saying that we overeducated, but maybe we have forced the people down this path rather than getting a skill set at the end that's actually, can be attained quicker. So competency-based education, trade, there's nothing wrong with the trade. And we've just, the pendulum is now shifting back where, okay, let's figure out what the right mix is. Maybe the participation level or higher education needs to change so that you are getting a direct result and an ROI on that investment. So anyway.
And just making better decisions. So if you say, hey, I want to go and do this as my career, okay, well then understanding that I'm going to make X when I get out. If I'm okay with making X, well then great, absolutely, do it. It is your life. But if you're like, ooh, I didn't know that all I'll make is X, and I'm going to have this amount to pay to get to that point, well, maybe I should look somewhere else. And it's just giving people those options and the information that they can make the best decision for them.
Yeah. And, both of you, are parents and have kids that you've advised on educational goals and aspirations. I worked with my 3 nieces and nephew, and even my sister, who completed her degree in a much later in life. But, there's 3 things that, just food for thought. I'll just throw 3 out. This area we could probably talk a significant period. And, if your listeners find it interesting, they may ask for more. But there's 3 things that I think can, just come to surface. One is, Paul, as you mentioned, jobs that may be going away or may need to be revisited. And one is through academic advisement, where you have a faculty member, you have staff online that are advising kids about programs that they're coming into in field of study. And also once they're in, whether it's by their department or institutional advisement. And that is going to be significantly more streamlined in the sense that now if I come in and I'm in this program, the institution should really be able to help me, tell me the classes and courses that I give personalizations to. How powerful would it be that if I am an individual and I'm a student and I can come in and I say, you know what, I work 5 days a week. I prefer night classes. I prefer this campus, even though there may be multiple campuses or locations near me. So I set my top three. I need daycare and childcare. I may need medical and things like that. And then it create a schedule for you for all of your classes that are tied directly to your program. So now, I mean, we used to flip through books and go to a big room that had colored balloons that said, go there to get your parking, and then go there to get your meals, and then, by the way, go to the green to pay. And now we just do that online, just in a somewhat more sophisticated manner. But can you imagine the power of being advised to be able to tie directly to the offerings of classes, but also, to be able to get in and get out, but also for the institution to be able to better predict class demand that ties to faculty hiring, ties to staffing within departments. That's a really powerful one with advising, because there's so much information in there. And again, it's not just advising. And in higher education, and many times we kind of think of it's admissions and it's student records, it's academic advisement, it's financial aid, it's student finance, and so on and so forth. But many people need to start thinking about the entire process. And so if I'm going to be advised, I'm also going to want to know, regardless if I am very wealthy, there's still money out there, or I am needing some real significant funding assistance besides just financial aid from the federal government. There is a lot of aid out there that AI can now help go find based on there's scholarships and funding and grants and loans out there for based on religion preferences, whether you do or you don't practice, athletic, and your things that, I like to play pickleball. There's people out there receiving, whether it's $500 or $5,000, there's funds out there based on your activities that now can help drive, and using your checking with your parents, checking with your church, checking with other companies that you may volunteer with, and really interrogating also online for corporations, the Orville Redenbacher, Coca-Cola, Pepsi. They have amazing programs that you can help find funding very, very quickly through artificial intelligence. And the other one that I would say, and we've talked about, that we come in from admissions, we get our classes, we are advised, we look for student financial planning and funding, and then we also, get our bill and career placement. But one of the biggest things that's going on in higher education right now is not just the redesign, but it's in the news, which is the direct lending program and the loan program in the United States. And there was a big pause, and now it has recently started. But can you imagine, many institutions are currently not able to offer, not all, but it's definitely not the norm, that if there's a child who is taking money out, and parents are taking money out through like a PLUS loan, for example, that as they continue to take money out as their education, they don't know what their loan payment's going to be. And there's multiple loan payment options by the Department of Education and others outside the Department of Ed that will say, here's 4 options. And as they take money out, all 4 of those options should immediately update that every time they take out a loan, they should have that front and center, that I understand this is my payment currently today. So taking money out to go on a spring break, and I am currently at a $450 a month payment when I leave, because you don't just pay it back when you get a degree, if you quit or you're suspended or whatever. So as you leave, giving them real-time access of what their loan amounts are, what their current interest rates are, what the repayment option. They may take it out from different lenders, not just the Department of Ed, so it may be multiple banks and things like that. But understanding how that can quickly add up, and then tie that to, but don't forget, in 4 years, this is how much you're going to make, and the average payment, and you're going to have to deduct that from it. that is incredibly eye-opening that most families and students do not have insight into today.
Yeah, and it's so funny that we don't do that for the students, right? That is not a given, and yet everybody that takes out a mortgage gets a truth in lending statement, right? Why isn't there a truth in lending statement for students? Thing is some level of financial literacy before you even do that. Like, you need to educate the student what that really means, because for them, they may be thinking, okay, I can kick in this can down the road, I will pay that later, not really realizing the full impact of what that payment will look like given their income, like you said. So I think there's a lot of work that could be done there to just make sure that students are going in eyes wide open on what their lending or their borrowing habits are. So,
and they may get and Paul, sorry, I'll come to you. I didn't mean to cut you off. They have that loan, entrance interview and exit interview and the packet of information, but that happens, right when you start and then when you leave, and what happens in between. And every time you take a payment, receive your loan at disbursement, your loan payment is going up, whether it's going up by a few dollars or it's going up by $50 or it's going up by a few $100. Many kids and families, and you're hearing it today in the discussion of the loan program, are having hundreds and hundreds of dollars in payments, and they have been paying on it for 7 years, and they still owe the same amount that they did because of a certain loan repayment program that they're on, or they actually owe more, and because they deferred all the interest on an unsubsidized type of loan. And that is incredible. And you're hearing just, it's preventing people from getting a house. It's preventing people from getting a car. It's preventing them from doing other things in life that potentially have negative impacts. So, Paul, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no. And we'll get to some of the exciting things coming from Oracle here in a second. All I wanted to add was just, it's actually pretty exciting. I mean, what we're talking about is all very complicated things. I mean, the fact that you've got all these different financial issues, informational issues. Well, we did take one leap from what you were talking about, John, where, hey, we go into a room, we go to this table and that table and that table. Well, the internet fixed that. Okay, now we can go and do those things much easier from our own home. Well, now with AI coming into the mix, there's just a whole new leap in technology that universities and institutions are going to have the ability to be able to start utilizing. And that's where things really get exciting. Is, yes, these are some complicated things that we're talking about today and trying to solve, but technology has now made a leap where we have the ability to be able to address those things and make changes that are necessary to truly provide an educational experience with a price tag that everybody understands and is comfortable with.
Yeah, 100%.
So with that, let's talk about some of the exciting things coming from Oracle. I think a lot of people are probably interested. Oracle's got some really neat things coming up. So I know you are not representing Oracle, but maybe you can talk about some of the exciting things that are coming from Oracle.
Yeah, so it is such an interesting time and super exciting to be at Oracle. This is actually my 10th year. I had a break in service, and I was on the services side where I did implementations, and now on the student and higher ed and public sector and engagements within Oracle. So I see sort of the breadth and depth of all the different industries that feed and how they tie. As Steve Miranda released, what we're doing within Oracle is really driving where the user creates his and her world. And it's learning that what they do from their patterns, from their likes, their dislikes, and using that information that's not just within that specific industry, like I'm a patient in a hospital, or I'm a student in a classroom, or I'm a veteran in the veteran service. It's really saying, I'm an individual and I need to engage with you, but you also need to understand that there's other things outside the world that I do that allow an open time to be able to do these other activities like, higher ed. So some of the things that are really interesting, definitely artificial intelligence and machine learning are we receive notices daily of how important this is from one of our founders, of Larry Ellison, and really being driven by our president, Ms. Katz. And so there's things in artificial intelligence and machine learning that the number one thing that and we have a huge model on this, and information on this, is to ensure of removing and addressing biased things that can happen with AI and machine learning. And yes, it can definitely be used for things that may not necessarily be a positive, but also understanding that even when things are done in a positive intent, is there still an underlying bias or challenge that's being tied into these models? And so there are actual programs, and there's a team, as Mr. Miranda discussed, addressing bias. And you can they publicize that through Oracle. So first, that's the underlying foundation of the entire release for artificial intelligence and machine learning. Here's some of the things that they've talked about. One of the components of artificial intelligence, and I'll sort of extrapolate it again to different industries, is that, and I'm going to start in healthcare because higher ed has many hospitals and medical students, is that for patients that are diabetic or they have a tendency and history in their family, they can now use a scale, and this is available, where, and you'll see it in the market and being tested, where they can get out of a shower every morning and step on a scale. The scale will analyze the feet and weight and all of those types of things, but it will also and be able to predict that, hey, the blood flow is being restricted so much, like sort of a heat map, that if you don't change your diet and control your blood sugar, you are going to have an abscess, and that could lead to potential amputation. And that's simply by standing on a scale, and it's sending it through the patatronics to be able to say, hey, you may notifies your doctor, notifies a nurse, notifies a healthcare individual, but also notifies you. That can go to a watch to say, hey, by the way, here's an alert, just like, tracking sugar. How does that sort of drive in higher education? We've sort of talked about them with some of the exciting ones with regards to what could happen in higher education with helping and streamlining the admissions application process. I mean, how archaic is it that I have to go in and answer all these questions on an application when much of that information should just be known? And it should be much more survey. It shouldn't be 5, 6, 7 pages with a save and return feature. So you're really seeing that integrate into more survey driven, using history of their life, like I need childcare, daycare, those types of things, and then tying that to the institution's service offerings, and then walking that through the entire process. Hey, here's funding, here's your payments as you take out loan, here's advising to your programs, tying that to a future career service placement and what your potential outcomes of income will be in 4 to 6 years. But it also can even further expand for faculty and staff for tying to their collective bargaining agreements and streamlining those alerts. One of the challenges within COVID that many people weren't aware of, that when that model had to change for many institutions and faculty members needed to begin teaching online, many collective bargaining agreements had that as, you have to pay us more or we don't do it. And so knowing those alerts and really understanding the contract and the enforcement of the contracts through artificial intelligence, blockchain, machine learning, and other types of internet things, and tying that to instruction time, class time, research time, away time. And as Mike mentioned as well, what's the value of that face-to-face? There's the next step that many are exploring as well that ties to this are having classes like TED Talks. Uh, a stats class is a stats class. One of my nieces, who was in graduate school actually, had to take a lab, and they actually sent her an item for dissection to as part of a lab work home. And so they had that. So thinking outside the box of being able to predict that from a supply chain, how do we get them that type of books and materials and lab, and how do we now do this into a very different world? And those are some of the exciting components that are now being attached. There's many others for different industries as well.
Yeah,
but that's sort of
it's fascinating how much everything's personalization is what I'll say. It's like it's across the board. This great personalization, which is really enabled by AI, right? So
yeah, absolutely. So
well, hey, John, I know that Oracle just doesn't play it serious the whole time. I understand that you guys had a holiday a challenge.
oh my gosh, it was so fun. So Oracle is getting ready to go into the shutdown or winter break, and it's a mandatory where we shut down in many cases between Christmas and New Year's. So everyone has it off, which when I first went into it, I thought, oh, that's really ridiculous. And now I can't even wait. I'm like, woohoo, last day before break. Because when you come back, unlike vacation, you don't have 50,000 emails because no one can get in. They do a lockout, and it's when they do a lot of maintenance. So what we recently had is that we had a cooking competition, which was all done online. And so we haven't been able to get together because of COVID and other things like that. And so we did a cooking competition, which was online. And so we were all sort of I had multiple cameras and started to do cooking. It was judged, and many people did, from a maple salmon to a buttered chicken to a codfish dish to grog and glug, which were holiday drinks. And I think that was just because they wanted during the cooking, but that sounded a little judgy, but not judgy. And then cookies and all different types of things. And so mine was a snow globe theme. And so my mother was very creative. She had a cake decorating business, and so she would always make, really cool things in the kitchen. And so this year we did, I think it was around snow globes, baking stuff. And so I did snow globe cookies. And so here's one, and it's decorative.
That is awesome.
And it has sugar glass water in it. This is 100% eligible or you can eat it. I can see through it. And it could also be hung. So there's a hole at the top. So I did different ones as well. I did some that are iced, some are not iced. But you can hear
I have
shake.
never seen anything like that.
That is so
literally
neat.
Never seen anything like that.
So this is,
and it's not going to cut my mouth when I bite into it.
It is not. It's literally like so it's a sugar cookie. It's a butter sugar cookie, which was delicious. And then the center is literally corn syrup or with sugar or meringue powder, depending on how you want to do it for like an icing. And but it's like eating glass candy when we were kids. And I added a flavor to it. So if you did eat it, it would complement the flavor of the cookie, because I added a butter flavor to make it taste more buttery, like a sugar cookie. And then the last thing that I did was a snow globe cake.
Whoa.
And so this is 2 layers. This has been shattered because we broke it yesterday, but it is a sugar
break in case of emergency kind of
thing. Exactly. Well, because I can't really. It has a.
I need that chocolate, and I need it now.
Everything. Right. I mean, in case of emergency, you can see a little,
Wow.
pond in there.
Is that a village?
Yeah, it is. Santa's in there, but this is 100% edible. So everything in there is fondant. And then this again was sugar and corn syrup and stuff like that. And to get a dome, you take it to the hard stage, and which is about 300, 320, somewhere in there. And then you let it cool, and you end up pouring it over a balloon. And when you pour it over the balloon, once it cools, don't do it when it's too hot because it could shatter and the balloon will pop. And then you will
I was going to say, yeah.
right, you will have
Yeah,
hot
you're
sugar.
popping my balloon.
Yeah, exactly. You'll have hot sugar, thrown across your kitchen, and that did happen. I just got impatient and it exploded. It was enjoyable, and but it completely becomes solid, and then you just release the air in the balloon, and it shrinks out, and you have a dome that goes right on top of a cupcakes. So it took about 2 hours from start to finish. So yeah. And
That is impressive. Well, you should win. I can't imagine if somebody beat you with that, they'd have to have something pretty amazing.
Exactly. No,
A bribe.
That's right. That's right. We paid off the judges. So yeah, it was just super fun because we were all on camera and we were, we hadn't, we work on different projects and and we cross different industries. And so there were industries like entertainment. So they were talking about different movies they were working on and TV shows before the strike and now after the strike, and hospitality and just some of the new things that like Marriott is doing and Hilton around AI and some of the new services that they put in. And then obviously higher ed and public sector and federal and K through 12. And so it's such an interesting thing to sort of the tools and technology are being used at Oracle by actual organizations around the world. So, and then we had individuals from around the world. They could participate. We did it really early, so it wasn't as late for everyone, but yeah, it was super fun. So my snow globe theme, that was it for this year. Thanks for asking.
Fun.
That is phenomenal.
So
nobody had any idea that you were quite the baker extraordinaire. I think one of the other things that's super interesting about you that I did not know, and this is talk about, was you are very tied to the Yellowstone Ranch. If everybody understands the TV show Rip and John Dutton and Beth and all that. So maybe you can share with us how do you know these people? What is your affiliation with the ranch? Because you have some pretty interesting insights as to what goes on there.
So I am really fortunate, as I mentioned, I was born and raised in Montana. And so we have family and friends. We have a very long history in the state. And in fact, we were some of the first settlers. And so I have family members who live in the Bitterroot Valley or Ravalli County, near the ranch and in Hamilton as well. And so the ranch, although it's called Yellowstone, is actually really the Chief Joseph Ranch. And a scout found it. It was an Airbnb. It's owned by the Leibel family, Shane and his family. Keeps his family fairly private, so I won't mention others in the family, but it was a working ranch, and it was they had opened it up for an Airbnb, and there was a scout who actually ended up staying at the ranch and reached out to them and said, "Hey, can we film a show?" And we don't know if it'll take off, but they came and looked at it, and so he decided to open it up, and so. But it's still a working ranch. It's still available for rental. It's actually located in Darby, Montana, which is just this smaller town on the way from Missoula, Montana, which is the nearest airport, down to Hamilton. And so you can actually go. It only opens for tours if you're a guest. And they have wedding ceremonies and have other activities on their property, which was a recent wedding of the family, which was down in that area. And so there's some interesting things with it. So here's one for that's was hilarious. So Kevin Costner is the key player, as you know, as they enter into season 5 and their final season. And so all of them, they typically shoot an entire season in usually under 60 days. And wow. So it is very, very long hours. And, whether it's cold, hot, they may do reshoots, but it's usually pretty quick. And and they shoot all different types of episodes and, have the story and things like that. So my cousin, who lives in Hamilton, Montana, and she's actually a business owner there, her name's Dina. And so she was shopping in the Walmart, which is the big Walmart in Hamilton. There's also one in Missoula, but it's much more. There's two actually. But if you're going to go into Missoula, there's a lot more people. So she was shopping and she was in an aisle, and then all of a sudden she was literally run into by a shopping cart in the back. And, she was happy, really happy. And so she turns around to be like, what the? And it was Kevin Costner. And so, yeah, he totally took her out. And, he was incredibly apologetic. He was really kind. And, she was like, he was just shopping and got distracted by something on the aisle. And
so he didn't take her to the train station then.
Yeah, no, he didn't. He just tried to take her out with the car, with all the cameras. Yeah, so he was looking for something in the aisle and literally ran her over. Additional things with that is that from filming 5, there was a situation where, as I mentioned, there was a wedding. And this happened about a year ago now. And so they were filming, and we had come up onto the wedding, and there were cast and crew, and so we were also in Darby and Lolo, and run into the actors and actresses. So Beth and Rip and others. So they have, my family is really tied there to stay there. They know the ranch, they know different members, and have interactions with the family, and they have just been incredibly gracious. But here's a little fun fact. So season 5 is their final season in that area, although there's going to be a spinoff and allegedly with Matthew. Yep. That has brought to the state of Montana over $700 million in revenue.
Wow.
From hotel, from food, from airfare, to everything that it entails of, hiring local and buying supplies, like from the Massa Home Center, for example. But it is literally, many family-owned companies that they support. If you ever go to Darby, Montana, there is a candy store there that is one of the older candy stores, just like in Virginia City. They have amazing candy. I mean, and as a former larger person, it's just a downfall. I have to now drive and wave and honk and hold myself out the window, but it's so great, and it's super fun. The last thing is that which always drives me crazy, because I posted it on my Facebook and social media as we talk about this as we're winding down, is that so the Ravalli County, Hamilton, our license plates, like many license plates in the state of Montana and around the world or around the United States, I have designations on them to tell where the vehicle is actually registered. So like Missoula County is a 4, and Hamilton is, I believe, a 13 still. And they have them throughout the state. So you can, as you were driving and you were driving younger, you would be able to say, oh, that's from Butte, where 1893 is filmed, or portions of it. And Butte's really cool. It's a mine. It has a huge mine. It was Copper Kings, if we have our history lesson for the day. And so whenever I watch the show and I see, like a 7, I'm like, that's not that. That is not from Ravalli County. That is not from Missoula. That is like Kalispell, which is literally 2.5 hours away, 2.5 hours away up as you go up to St. Ignatius and to Flathead Lake. And so it always drives me crazy about like those little continuity things. And I'm like, could you or just obscure the license plate at least? But so it does drive me like, oh, it's a 3, and I'm like, I think that's Billings. So that I always post to my Facebook, like, when there's discrepancies of what's really happening in Montana, or if it's filmed. They have done a lot of things with Pause Up as well, which has really great sets and things like that. So yeah, it's super fun. It's very, very gracious, very gracious.
They obviously could have used machine learning there, right?
Machine learning, right? Exactly.
There you go. That's the next market we go into, is television, entertainment. Well, I have a question. So if they're doing everything within 60 days for the entire season, are the majority of the sets then on premise? I mean, they would have to be somewhere close, I would imagine.
Yeah. So all of the properties and all of the homes that the Dutton family and others are actual residents on the ranch. So it's not like they have to be built. I mean, if you go into John Dutton's home, with some different furniture and stuff that they swap out, it looks like that. So they don't build, those sets are not built. The residents for Rip and Beth and John Dutton and things like that, those are actually cabins. You can rent them through their Airbnb. I will tell you, it's not cheap. And it's not like, and I want to stress it's an Airbnb, so it's not like they're making you meals, and having the chef on board and things like that. It really is a functioning home. And but it is in a beautiful, beautiful location of fishing and hunting and skiing and snowboarding and snowmobiles and just so many different types of things, campfires and s'mores. And it is a beautiful, beautiful property.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we're getting to the hour. John, thank you so much for being gracious with your time, for sharing all this information with us. You have some fantastic insight. Hopefully we'll be able to have you on again as things further move forward within Oracle. But thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I hope your listeners enjoyed it. I did. It was super fun. And again, thank you. And if you ever need me to come back and be a guest, count me in. So
I'm going to send you my address for those cookies.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining. We appreciate it.
You have been listening to Launch Code with Mike and Paul. You can find all episodes on your favorite podcast services and on our website at elastiforce.com. In addition, if you have software development or Oracle or PeopleSoft managed service needs, visit us at elastiforce.com and let's see how we can help.